Okay, what if I told you that the 3-pound organ sitting inside your skull isn't some fixed piece of hardware? That it's actually a dynamic, living control center that you can physically change, literally shaping who you are every single day. Today, we are diving deep into the incredible adaptive power of your brain.
And to really get a grip on this, we're going to start with a question that seems to completely defy biology. How is it even possible for a child not just survive, but to actually thrive with only half of his brain?
So I want you to meet Ozzy. Before he was even born, a massive stroke wiped out almost the entire left side of his brain. And to give him a shot at a normal life, to free him from these awful, debilitating seizures, surgeons made a really radical call. They disconnected the damaged left hemisphere from the healthy right one. The story of what happened next, well, it's absolutely remarkable. And it's the key to understanding your own brain's hidden powers. To figure out how Ozzy's brain pulled off this incredible feat, we've got to start small. We need to look at the fundamental building blocks, the messengers of your entire nervous system.
And it all begins with the neuron. These are the tiny nerve cells that do all the heavy lifting, all the information processing. And the scale here is it's mind-boggling. Your brain has something like 100 billion of them, and each one is connected to thousands of others. It is, without a doubt, the most complex network we know of.
So what does one of these little guys look like? Well, you can think of it in 3 main parts. You've got the cell body, that's kind of the main headquarters. Then you have the dendrites, which are like these little tree branches reaching out to receive information. And finally, the axon, which is the long cable that sends information out. And here's a little trick to remember it. Axon and away both start with A. The axon carries the message away.
Okay, so how do these neurons actually talk to each other? They use electricity in a process called an action potential. So imagine a tiny, tiny battery. In its resting state, it has a slight negative charge. But when it's time to fire, gates in the cell wall fly open, positive ions rush in, and this wave of positive charge, this electrical signal, zips all the way down the axon. And then, just as fast, it resets itself, ready for the next signal. It's this beautiful, coordinated electrical dance.
And here's the really crucial part. This firing follows what's called the all-or-nothing principle. A neuron doesn't kind of fire or fire a little bit. It's like the fuse on a firecracker. Once it's lit, it's going all the way. It either fires at its absolute full strength or it doesn't fire at all.
So that electrical signal reaches the end of the line. But now there's a problem. Neurons don't actually touch each other. There's this tiny, tiny space between them called the synaptic gap. So to get the message across, the electrical signal gets converted into a chemical one, using these little messengers called neurotransmitters. They are literally the couriers that carry the message from one neuron to the next.
All right, let's zoom out. We've gone from the single cell, the messenger, to the big picture. Now we're going to look at the headquarters itself, the major structures of the brain. So think of that wrinkly outer layer of your brain, the cerebral cortex, as being divided into 4 main departments, or lobes. In the back, you've got the occipital lobes, processing everything you see. On the sides, the temporal lobes are busy with hearing, language, and making memories. Right up front behind your forehead are the frontal lobes. That's the CEO, in charge of your personality, intelligence, and planning. And up top, the parietal lobes are like your brain's GPS, managing spatial location and attention.
Your brain is also split right down the middle into 2 halves, the left and right hemispheres. But they aren't working alone. They're connected by this massive superhighway of nerve fibers called the corpus callosum, which lets the 2 sides talk to each other constantly. Now, you've probably heard all that talk about being left-brained or right-brained, right? And there is some truth to the idea of specialization. Generally speaking, the left hemisphere is more of a specialist in things like language and recognizing words. The right hemisphere tends to be better at things like spatial perception, recognizing faces, and processing emotion. But, and this is a big but, for almost any complex task you do, you are using both sides working together in harmony. Okay, we've covered the messengers, we've looked at the map, we now have all the pieces we need to solve the mystery of Ozzy, and it all comes down to your brain's one true superpower.
And that superpower is called plasticity. This is the whole ball game right here. Plasticity isn't some vague self-help concept. It is the brain's special physical capacity to change. Your experiences can literally physically alter the structure and function of your brain.
And this is the answer to our question from the beginning. This is how Ozzy thrives. Because his injury happened so early in life, his brain's plasticity was at its absolute peak. His healthy right hemisphere essentially staged a takeover. It rewired itself to do all the jobs the left side was supposed to do, including complex things like language. One half of his brain learned to do the work of a whole. It's just incredible. And look, this isn't just something for extreme cases like Aussies. It applies to every single one of us. There's this quote from our source material that just says it perfectly. When you change the way you think, you are literally changing the brain's physical processes and even its shape.
You want some more proof? Okay, check this out. Look at London taxi drivers. To get their license, they have to memorize thousands of streets, a test called the knowledge. It's a massive feat of spatial memory. And when scientists studied their brains, they found that the part of the brain responsible for those spatial maps, the hippocampus, was physically larger than in the average person. Their experience of learning the city literally changed the shape of their brain.
So, if experience can change the brain, where does it all start? What's the foundation? Well, that brings us to the final piece of this puzzle, the genetic blueprint that our experiences build upon. It's really important to get two key ideas straight here. Your genotype, that's your genetic heritage. It's the actual underlying genetic material, the DNA. Your phenotype, on the other hand, is what you can actually see. It's your observable traits, like your eye color, your height, even parts of your personality. And your phenotype is what happens when your genotype interacts with your environment and all your experiences.
So maybe think of it like this. Your genes provide the initial architectural blueprint for your brain. But it's your life, your learning, the choices you make, and your environment, that's the construction crew. And that crew is continuously renovating and adding to that structure for your entire life.
So, what's the bottom line here? The most important takeaway is this. Your brain is not a static piece of hardware that you're just stuck with. It's a dynamic, living organ that is constantly, every minute of every day, adapting and rewiring itself based on how you use it.
And that leaves us with a pretty powerful and personal final thought. If every new skill you practice, every new idea you entertain, every single new experience is physically changing your brain, it kind of makes you wonder, right? What will you choose to teach it next?